So let's move on to some climate change stuff. Last night, the catastrophic floods in Michigan were the top story on all three primetime network news programs. But of course, not one. So this is a thread about climate change being a part of the Michigan floods. Of course, not one segment even mentioned how climate change contributed to the disaster. Of course, they didn't. Because you might, cause people worry, consternation. People might start thinking that climate change is an actual problem that we have to deal with. Once again, reporting as if climate change weren't real. The reporter on the story at NBC did provide some context for the tragedy, noting long-standing fears about the dam's age, but she never connected the extreme rainfall to that overwhelmed the dams to climate breakdown. This is Lester Holt on NBC Nightly News. Is extreme rainfall in the Midwest a symptom of climate change? Yes. We have compiled the extant scientific research in scripts that state clearly that climate breakdown is increasing the risk of such rainfall in the central and eastern U.S. And if you've been watching the news or paying attention over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, every single year, what have we had? We have, these huge flood events, epic flood events, 100-year floods, 500-year floods, 1,000-year floods. This has happened every single year for the last 5 years. Oh, gee. Seems to be happening a lot. What does it mean? What's causing it? Could it be extreme rainfall and floods? Climate change is making rainfall more extreme. Our planet has already warmed an average of 1°C, and let's, most scientists would agree we're, squarely on 1.5 and probably above 1.5. Climate change is increasing the risks of flooding in the following regions: Africa, central and eastern U.S., Indian subcontinent, northern Europe, Russia, western China. And the fourth National Climate Assessment also informs us that climate change is bringing an increase in extreme precipitation events to the region. Let's check this out. Climate change poses several challenges to transportation and storm water systems in the Midwest. Annual precipitation in the Midwest has increased by 5% to 15% from the first half of the last century. Compared to present day, present day being 1986 to 2015, winter and spring precipitation are important to flood risk in the Midwest and are projected to increase by up to 30% by the end of the century. Heavy precipitation events in the Midwest have increased in frequency and intensity since 1901 and projected to increase through this century. There has been, this is a highlighted section, there has been an increase in extreme precipitation events that overwhelm storm water sewage systems, disrupt transportation networks, and cause damage to infrastructure and property. So if you were looking at climate change very clearly and rationally and understanding what's going on and assessing, in reality what's going on, you would see that these extreme weather events are happening every single year. Climate change is projected to get worse. Temperatures are projected to increase. Therefore, you would probably, if you were, using a couple of brain cells, rubbing them together, you would project that these rainfall events are going to continue to increase, not decrease. And then you would adjust your actions accordingly. You would adjust where it is that you decided to live. You would adjust your city planning or your government planning around this. Your people making public policy would understand this reality and adjust to it and make sure that we are acting accordingly. That these events are not going to stop happening. They're going to continue happening every single year, and they're going to continue happening and getting worse. So how do you act in the face of that knowledge? It's very simple. Here are stories about the disaster that provide its climate context. And then I'm going to read a little bit about this. The Dow Chemical plant and the Superfund cleanup. And acknowledging the reality of climate change is not some fringe practice. Oh, but, some people like to call people in climate change or concerned about climate change, fringe actors. It's at the very center of mainstream print journalism. The vast majority of the time, the TV networks act like climate change isn't real. Yeah, because nobody reads and everybody watches TV or watches videos, right? You can count on the fact that, very few people actually read articles or read all the way through them. And that number is going down, not up. This is CBS Evening News. Janet Shamlian, also set background by noting that the burst dams were built in the 1920s. She said not a word about the danger of the aged infrastructure in the era of climate breakdown, nor about climate change at all. Of course, so far, so unsurprising. The real shocker was at ABC News. Rob Marciano, who is a meteorologist, for goodness sakes, and who's on record as acknowledging that floods have a confident link to climate change, never even mentioned the link. Tornadoes are one of the few weather categories not proven to be impacted in some way by climate change. Really? Really? Are they not? Okie dokie. Heat waves, drought, and floods have a confident link. Snowstorms and hurricanes have loosely supported theories. What? Man. Nobody should be listening to this guy at all. Currently, there's no scientific evidence that climate change has an impact on severe thunderstorm and tornado. Really? Dude, you're wrong on every single count. Except for floods have a confident link, but sounds so tepid. So he's saying they do not have an impact on severe thunderstorm or tornado frequency or intensity. Liar. Bullshitter. Even worse, Rob Marciano called the pandemic a 500-year event, suggesting that it hasn't happened in the past 500 years and won't happen in the next 500. You should know that this is misleading. Have you ever heard of the Spanish flu? You dope. And there's been other pandemics since the Spanish flu. Okay. Statisticians use phrases like 1 in 500 year event not to provide a timeline for disasters, but to express its probabilities in any given year, such as the event will have a 1 in 500 chance of striking a particular area. Right, but if you have a 500 year floods every single year, then the things we use to measure the frequency of their occurrences are no longer valid anymore. Climate change is forcing FEMA to update its flood maps all the time. Michigan is certainly not safe from more catastrophic flooding for the next 500 years. Rob Marciano should know that climate breakdown is making catastrophic rainfall in the Midwest more likely, and he should inform his viewers about the facts. So yeah, I mean, maybe we could actually have some action on climate change. Maybe we should take emergency action on climate change, but we would need the broadcasters, the newscasters, and the people that give us information, and the scientists, and the government, and everybody to actually tell the truth and say, like, God, people can die from this. This is really bad. This could actually destroy the whole planet. This is really bad. Not to mention climate change and reports on traumatic disasters is to spread the disinformation that climate change is not happening. This is the conspiracy. The conspiracy is not that climate change is a hoax. The conspiracy is that the media tells you it's not happening or it's not that bad. Or they intentionally leave out, omit the links between climate change and huge natural disasters. When every scientist and everyone else knows there's a direct link. This is on all of you. Learn something about climate change. Understand that most Americans, younger viewers especially, are interested in news stories about global warming. Do your damn jobs. Here's a dumbass right here. How's a flood on a floodplain? Climate change. Lame. Patrick Moore. You're a dunce. Put on your dunce cap and go sit on the corner. And now a commercial word from Exxon. Very funny. Anyways, yeah, just wanted to read through that with y'all because I thought that was interesting. What do y'all think? Speaking is like carving a turkey with a chainsaw. It's what? Yeah. Yeah, let's move on to this story. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just kind of cover a little bit of this. Dam failure threatens a Dow Chemical complex, which, we kind of covered very briefly the other day. And Superfund cleanup. Floodwaters from 2 breached dams in Michigan on Wednesday flowed into a sprawling Dow Chemical complex and threatened a vast Superfund toxic cleanup site downriver, raising concerns of wider environmental fallout from the dam disaster and historic flooding. The compound, which also houses the chemical giant's world headquarters, lies on the banks of the Tittabawassee River in Midland, where by late Wednesday, rising water had encroached on some parts of downtown. Kyle Bandlow, a Dow spokesman, said that floodwaters had reached the Dow site's outer boundaries and had flowed into retaining ponds. Excuse me, designed to hold what he described as brine water used on the site. Brine water. Superfund cleanup sites are downriver from the century-old plant, which for decades had released chemicals into the nearby waterways. Thanks, Dow. The concern downriver, according to Alan Burton, a professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences at the University of Michigan, is that contaminated sediments on the river floor could be stirred up by the floodwater, spreading pollution downstream and over the riverbanks. You worry about the speed of the current, this wall of water coming down the river. It just has a huge amount of power. But Mr. Bandlow of Dow, or Bandlow of Doe, said the company was implementing its flood preparedness plan. Thanks, Dow, which includes a safe shutdown of the operating units on site. I'm sure, it's something. Which still manufactures plastics and other chemical products. He said, that's great to know, too. He said only essential Dow staff remained on the site to monitor the situation and manage any issues as a result of the flooding. Mr. Bandlow did not provide information on the status of the cleanup sites. Excuse me. Over the years, the Dow complex has manufactured a range of products, including saran wrap, styrofoam, Agent Orange, and mustard gas. We went from, nice little picnic items to Agent Orange and mustard gas really fast. Saran wrap, styrofoam, Agent Orange, ketchup, toothpicks, plastic bottles, Coke bottles, mustard gas. Over time, Dow released chemicals into the water, leading to dioxin contamination, stretching more than 50 miles along the Tittabawassee and Saginaw rivers and into Lake Huron. Yippee. Research has shown that dioxins can damage the immune system, cause reproductive or developmental problems, and cause cancer. That's just to humans, right? So humans only care about humans. That's what it does to us. But what does it do to the rest of the environment? What does it do to the fishies and the birdies and the other animals that live in Lake Huron and the water and the foliage and the grass and everything that grows around Lake Huron? What does it do to those things? There is also a tiny nuclear research reactor on the site. Good to know. Used to create material that can be used in product experiments. Beauty. Overnight, Dow filed an unusual event report with the Federal Nuclear Regulatory Commission warning of potential flooding at the site. Help. But the reactor had already been shut down because of the coronavirus crisis, and there were no indications of flood damage on Wednesday. Phew. A federally funded Superfund cleanup on the Tittabawassee River began in 2007 and was slated for completion next year. Cleanup of other contaminated waterways is set to take longer. I would hate to see 13 years of work literally go down the drain if this flood wipes away that effort, said Terry Miller, chairman of the local environment group Lone Tree Council, which has for years campaigned for a cleanup. We were almost nearing the end. Apparently, there a cap came off, like a holding tank, and I believe a bunch of toxins leaked out. See if they get to that. I don't think they do. Anyways, there's a small nuclear facility on the Dow Chemical plant site. Yeah. So great. Basil Peterson Regulatory Commission run by ex-nuclear power lobbyist. Yep. Indeed. Let's move on to some more climate change noodles. San Angelo breaks record high temperatures. This is from Nick Humphrey's page. Storms possible next several days. So this is from Texas, San Angelo, Texas. It's from yesterday. Storms Wednesday brought cooler temps, power outages. I've driven through San Angelo many times. Just fun fact. Welcome rain for parts of Concho Valley, and more could be in store. Wednesday night, San Angelo saw severe thunderstorms with winds whipping at gusts of 50 miles per hour, creating power outages for parts of San Angelo into the night. But this is the crazy part. Tuesday had a record high of 108 degrees. Ouch. It's pretty hot. Broke a previous record of 105 set in 2003. San Angelo is warmer this time of year compared to previous years. Oh, do I suspect a trend? The average is 88 degrees, so it's pushing 15 to 20 degrees above normal right now. Okay. Moving on. This is from Chigozi. Coronavirus floods and locust swarms. Kenya is fighting a triple whammy of crises. It's from May 18th. I've been keeping y'all updated on the floods in Kenya. This has been ongoing and just goes and goes and doesn't stop. Heavy rains over the last month have led to overflowing rivers and lakes and mudslides. With Kenya particularly impacted, authorities and international organizations on the ground face an uphill battle against spiraling food insecurity, which has already been exacerbated by the locust invasion, while at the same time working to curtail the spread of COVID-19, already navigating the coronavirus pandemic and the worst invasion of desert locusts for more than 25 years. Parts of East Africa are now being devastated by flooding. Heavy rains over the last month have led to overflowing rivers, lakes, and mudslides, while Kenya is particularly impacted. About 200 people have lost their lives, and according to the Kenyan Red Cross, while hundreds of thousands have been internally displaced since the rainy season began in March. Authorities and international organizations on the ground face an uphill battle against spiraling food insecurity, which had already been exacerbated by the locust outbreak. while at the same time working to curtail the spread of COVID-19, which remains the main focus of government resources. They're getting hit from all sides in Kenya. And so this is an interesting story. Out of India, a climate scientist believes a drop in pollution due to the coronavirus lockdown could have exacerbated Cyclone Amphan in India and Bangladesh. So what is he talking about? He's talking about global dimming. But few people, because so few people actually understand climate change science or understand that climate change is real or understand it's an actual problem. You know, even fewer people understand the complexities of climate change, and that's exhibited in the comments here because there's just dumb shit after dumb shit that don't understand that climate change is even real or couldn't even begin to fathom the idea of what global dimming means or is. But anyways, a climate scientist believes a drop in pollution due to the coronavirus lockdown could have so he's saying the hotter temperatures made the storm stronger. Anyways, let's watch this video a little bit.
Almost 2.5 million people have taken shelter from Cyclone Amphan, an evacuation made all the more challenging by COVID-19. It was the strongest tropical storm on record as it tracked north through the Bay of Bengal with wind speeds of 270 miles an hour, but they were barely half that by the time the vortex made landfall close to the border of Bangladesh and India. Scientists believe the record sea temperatures that fueled the storm may have been caused in part by more sunlight filtering through pollution-free skies during the pandemic lockdown.
What happened this year is that there is much more radiation which has come because of lack of aerosols and also reduced clouds. So it has warmed more. Now, and in this condition, a cyclone has formed. So what has happened is that cyclone, we all know, it basically depends upon the heat content of the ocean. So more heat content, more intense is the cyclone.
Climate change is fueling superstorms. The sea temperature in the Bay of Bengal reached 34 degrees in the first 2 weeks of May. The energy from such warm water whips up the wind speed. Strong storms are increasing by 8% a decade. Rising temperatures also increase rainfall from storms. Research suggests it will surge by 20% in the coming decades. The new normal of climate change will make poorer countries even more vulnerable to other emergencies such as pandemics.
This is a clear view of what happens when two crises come together. Bangladesh are dealing with the COVID-19 outbreak, and at the same time they've now got to deal with a super cyclone heading their way. And these sort of combined or compound problems are really where you see the serious issues. And that's what we've got to mitigate for in the future as well. It's not just climate change impacts, it's when climate change coincides with one of these other sort of outbreaks.
This is likely to be the strongest storm to hit the area since a cyclone in 2007 killed 3,500 people. The pandemic is an extra hazard this time round, and authorities are opening up schools and other large buildings as cyclone shelters to reduce the risk of the coronavirus spreading through overcrowding.
Okay. So, interesting. Scientists trying to explain, the phenomena of global dimming is, on national TV. That's pretty great. But the comment section is just ridiculous. Now, there's a mixed message if I ever heard one. Let's decide, please. Is pollution bad or good? Now it's less pollution causing the storm. Just shut the F up. 2019, stop polluting the world. It's causing global warming and making the weather more extreme. 2020, actually a drop in pollution is causing the seas to warm and therefore creating more extreme storms. So people are just not able to actually, and I have to say, it's probably a little on the esoteric side for for a lot of people to understand, right? Oh, global warming is bad because it puts particles in the air that help heat up the planet. But the problem is that those particles are also at the same time keeping the planet cool. They're having a dual effect. They're cooling and heating at the same time. So if you lose those, then you just get a whole, it unmasks the amount of heating. Hey guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below: PayPal, Square, and Patreon. Also, all of my live streams are available for listening on Patreon if you happen to miss them during the day. So you can sign up for my Patreon for as little as $1. If you want to go check out the live streams, they are all there. Thanks a lot.